Put our time with Mike Bennett this morning. We're reaching you from Chennai in India, and Mike is talking about sharing the gospel. And yeah, Mike, as a Christian, or you've also experienced persecution and also opposition to sharing the gospel. Could that be a reason why most people are scared that there will be opposition? Or
I don't think we're in that position yet within the Western Church,
yes.
And it would be actually wrong for me to say so. We've only just experienced, or listened to, only in the last 24 hours, the issues here in India,
yes.
with preaching the gospel. And I noticed yesterday there were a number of people around where we were yesterday who were part of the hardline Hindu organisation.
Yes.
And they didn't look very kind on us because we were in the vicinity of the churches that we were visiting yesterday when we were stood outside. Yeah. So that is the reality of persecution, and the reality of persecution in the Middle East. It's come to even Prince Charles has been talking about it. Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, has been talking about it. Even Baroness Varsi, who's a leading Muslim in the British House of Lords, has been speaking of her concern of the decline of ancient Christian communities within the Middle East. So to talk about persecution as a British Christian, I think, although we do face opposition, and opposition particularly in public bodies and things like that, to talk about persecution would be somehow to minimise what's going on in the rest of the world. And the fact that one Christian every 11 hours is being murdered for their faith, there is no way we're being persecuted.
That's so true. Mike, do you think because a few days ago I was just pondering about this issue, if we go back to the old gospel Christian living, the gospel of suffering for Christ, if I can put that word rightly, whereby, you deny yourself, how would the Western world react to that, Western Christians?
Well, I think that would see probably even more people leave the church. I think it would. We have to look to ourselves. I mean, that taking up the cross.
Yes.
And it's trying to explore what that means. And one of the things I think it means, it's about forgiving. When you look at Jesus upon the cross, the arms outstretched upon the cross, he is taking on the sin of the world. He is taking on the pain of that sin. He is taking on the punishment that we all deserve. I mean, Paul says in Romans, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. The word sin itself, in English, it's an old English word that means to miss the mark. And all of us have done that. There's only one person who's hit the bullseye, and that's Jesus. And he's the one that's on the cross. He's the only one that can forgive. But I wonder sometimes when Jesus was talking about taking up the cross, he meant that it was about forgiving. Because in the process of forgiving, you take on that pain. Jesus will heal the pain caused by hurt, betrayal, treachery, all of those things. But we have to choose to take up the cross in the same way and be prepared to forgive totally.
In that respect, then, Mike, if we have to equate or balance or actually compare, is the best word to use, the Western world Christians and the third world, if I can use that term because I really don't like that term, Christians. So how will you compare? Being a missionary yourself, who've been to third world countries, Kenya and India and some of the countries, how will you compare the Christians there?
Well, I've always found that meeting with Christians from India or Africa, South America, there is always a challenge to one's faith, an exuberance,
yes,
an excitement for the faith that so often isn't found within the Western churches. I say less so now because I think we have picked up on that in so many ways. But it's the challenge, again, it's Christians that have been tested
yes,
in the fire that are the ones that, they're the ones that really challenge and also give you fresh strength.
That's so true. So true. You cannot give what you don't have.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Mike, there is a sensitive question that has been coming over a few among the Christian world now about the coming of Christ. A lot of people are complacent because they feel that Christ is coming. We'll be talking about that for a long time. And is he really going to come? Is this a fable? And because of that, people tend to live their life in a way that is, how can I put it, conceivable with the world. So what is your view about Christ coming again?
Well, my view is that we do see signs of the times. In 2009, I went with my wife to Israel and with a small little charity called the Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund. And you can find their website on the internet, ORTF something or other, .org or something. I can't remember offhand. But we were visiting Messianic congregations, Messianic Jewish congregations and Arab congregations in the West Bank. I'm thinking particularly Bethlehem. And there we saw work that's going on trying to build reconciliation between Jew and Arab. And we saw so many signs of the times of the importance of the land of Israel, the recognition that the Arabs are part of God's plan as much as the Jews, and certain scriptures in Isaiah, and now you caught me on the spot because I can't remember one's talking about a highway involving Assyria, that's modern day Syria and Greater, the land of Israel and Egypt, and God having a plan for all of those. And it's there in Isaiah. But we also see the amazing growth of the Messianic church. I won't call it church because that has all sorts of connotations, but Messianic congregations within the land of Israel have seen the most phenomenal growth. There's something like 150 to 200,000 Messianic Jews in Israel today, whereas only 10, 20 years ago there were a fraction of that number. And I think that's a sign of the times. And Jesus in his talk to the disciples on the Mount of Olives before his death, when he was talking about the end times, he says, in Luke's Gospel, he says, when you begin to see these things, look up, for your redemption is nigh. And I look at that. We've always got to be ready. We do not know the hour of the day. Too many people have tried to guess when it'll be, and they have made themselves look foolish. And I would never even dream of doing that. But there are signs of the times, and we have to be ready.
Ready, that's good. Mike, I'm happy you said that, because one of the things that I've noticed among the Christian world evangelicals is that we become complacent concerning the message. The message of the coming of Christ and getting ourselves ready, our church ready. It seems that so many people, I say this with high respect to many, many pastors. It seems that we are so involved in building programs and mighty churches and all, which is, it can be good, but the real focus is preparing the heart of the people to the Father. So the other question I'm puzzled about in our Christian life, what is, why is there so much a decline in Christian integrity today. Christian integrity meaning our standard in society, our holiness, our righteousness, and the way we view our outlook. It looks like there's so much decline. Sometimes you can't even differentiate who is who anymore in our Christian world.
Well, I think probably we've become infected with the materialism of the world. It's life is easy. I think under persecution, that sharpens the whole focus up. But I recently went, and sorry if this is not quite answering your question, but I recently was in recent times in Krakow in Poland. My wife and I were there supporting David Hathaway mission. I have to say, as part of our annual holiday, because we were then going off somewhere else. But while we were there, we visited the Schindler Museum. The museum set up in the old factory that Oskar Schindler had during the war, where he saved thousands of Jewish lives. It's an amazing place, and I would encourage anybody who's ever in Krakow to visit. But the last place, the room that you go through, is called Choices, and in that room are two sort of interactive books. And one of them tells of stories of those that risked their lives to save Jews during the war, during the Holocaust.
Yes.
And the other book was full of ones that betrayed Jews. And the whole room was called Choices. We all have choices over integrity. Sometimes we don't know how we're going to respond when we are confronted with the persecuted person at the door, whether we're prepared to let them in and give them succor, or we turn them away or turn them in. That was a real salutary lesson. But the extraordinary thing is, you go out of that room, and like every museum, it has a shop. And you go out of the Choices room, you come out of there, and you're back into the materialistic world that we kind of inhabit. Yeah, I think it is a big issue about integrity, and Satan works on the weakness. I was reading just before I came away a book by the late Derek Prince talking about spiritual warfare and the importance of praying for that faith, so that the shield, the shield that Paul talks about is the shield that a Roman soldier carried that covered his whole body. Yeah. But it was also used to link with other shields to make a phalanx of shields to protect them when attacking or being attacked. And we need to make sure that we're linked in. One of the things is to make sure that we're accountable, and we're in accountable bodies. I have a prayer partner, an Afro-American guy called Ron, who's ex-USAF airman, and he lives in England with his English wife. And there is an account. We pray together, but there's an accountability together, and we've had to, as we say in Norfolk, my part of England, square each other up. There is that. I think that's an important accountability. There are many people who operate with no accountability, and I think that is one of the dangers. Is where you have church leadership, for example, with no accountability.
That's true. Thank you, Mike. We'll be right back after this.